Go.
Uh-oh, what's going on here? Oh, wrong
Wait a
one.
minute. Wait.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Drinks and Daves. And look
at this
around.
place, huh?
I know we completely remodeled it. So for those of you in the bar, take a look around and welcome to our first episode at our home. Drinks and Daves on YouTube. Dave, flash that up there, will you, so people can remember?
Yeah, well, let's see. Well, there's a lot going on right now because you know who's in the house.
That's
Major
right.
Rich.
That's right. Major
Welcome,
Rich is here.
as always.
And that's awesome. So how's it going? How has your week been?
Not bad. It's been beautiful weather here. Almost perfect.
Wait a minute. I have a sound clip for that. You said the weather's been beautiful. I would say it has been not good. Not good here anyways. We're still in the hundreds. So no, temperatures here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and we're going to be in the mid to high 90s the remainder of this week. We're supposed to hit 100 on Friday and then 85 on Sunday, but hopefully that.
So it's like October. So you realize we're like 2.5 months away from Christmas, and you're still triple digits.
Well, yeah, basically we've all taken stock in Hawaiian Tropic for, we're going to come out with these little Hawaiian Tropic bottles that have Christmas hats on the top of them. So yeah, it's pretty bad.
And you got your AC fixed at least.
Yeah, I got a brand new air conditioner at the shop. $8,500 later, and it didn't work the first day, but then it started working. So yeah, it's doing very well. It's a mini split, which is kind of neat. I've never seen those before, but it's kind of cool.
People that live in areas like this have no clue what that means.
Oh, really? A mini split is just a small electric. The head unit goes up on top of the wall, and then there's a small condenser on the outside, and it's super quiet. Super quiet.
Wait. Small is $8,000.
Oh yeah, and that's the well, I don't want to. Let me put it that that's the Asian version. They can go as high as $10,000.
Really? Yeah. So I think I saw a picture of it. Right? You got like this white box up on the ceiling. I didn't know there was something outside. I thought that's like
they take the coolant lines and everything and put them through the wall, and then all the electrical stuff, and then there's a small condenser that's about this wide outside. Or they call it they don't call it a condenser, they call it something sci-fi, and it's very, very quiet, and it's got what's cool about it is the box itself has an oscillating fan on it. So that's kind of neat. So
yeah, here you go. You got the legit version.
The legit version. In fact, tonight I'm wearing my legit watch, my relax watch, my Namaste Om watch, after having to deal with a rather interesting person on my channel, troll. But anyhow, that's a different story. So what are you smoking tonight?
I'm smoking Romeo y Julieta.
You're stroking. I beg your pardon.
Oh, it's long enough. See that? Reservo. Yeah, look how long this thing. I thought, I lit it before the show because it's going to last like an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. And that normally I don't light it up till we start, so it'll last the whole.
Our guest tonight, I'm sure, will take us, through an hour and a half, like this. I'm sure we won't have a problem with that. But I am smoking a Oscar Valladares 2012 barber pole, Mexican San Andreas with a Candela wrapper.
Wait a minute, is that the one you sent me?
Yes.
Okay, I've got one left. I didn't know the band was that. That's a
it's a Candela and a Mexican San Andreas wrapped together.
Spider loves me more. Hey, Spider, good to see you.
Oh wow, he doesn't say hi to me. Thanks a lot, Spider. Appreciate that, dude.
So you've been on the wagon the last couple shows?
I don't know why. And I'm on the wagon again today. I'm drinking root beer.
Do you not know the name of this channel?
Well, wait a minute. Root beer is a drink. Well, it's not an alcoholic drink, but it is a drink.
I suppose. Well,
and if he's here, we need to give a shout out to Tim as he's enjoying himself working in Florida, visiting all the cigar factories.
Yeah, I don't know that he's a main watcher of our channel, but in honor of our guest, because I know he's more of a bourbon guy, but I do know he's into the Lagavulin. So this is I gotta green screen it up. This automatic stuff doesn't work very good for these things. Anyway, Lagavulin. This is the charred oak cask. It's
nice,
smokier
very nice, very nice.
than. Oh, look at it. I mean, look at them all rolling in here.
They're all
here
rolling
you
in
go.
here. And
You got your friend Amber.
Yep.
Amber likes the bar.
Thank you,
We're
Amber. Thank you, Amber. And just a reminder, although these two mugs are the hosts, you guys direct the comments. So you barflies in the lounge, please check out the new digs. We hope that you can see all this beautiful artwork and all hard work that we did to get it ready. And we are very excited tonight because not only is our guest my partner in the shavingcadre.com, a wet shaving forum, but he is also a professional referee. So we're going to be talking football, basketball, and all kinds of stuff. We've got some pictures. We've got some neat stuff. So is that the doorbell I hear?
Hey!
There he is.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy.
Hey there. Good to see you guys.
So, Chad, I guess first off, and there's Dad from Oregon. Welcome, Stephen. Thank you for joining us. And Pantea, and I was on a different screen, so I couldn't see everybody. You should all be able to, now that you're watching this from the Drinks and Dave channel, you guys should all be able to interact with the chats. So let us know how that's going. So we're real happy about that. So I guess the first and foremost question is, Chad, what possessed you to get into refereeing? I mean, it's not something that just, you wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a referee.
Made you think of,
wait, before we go there, you have to tell us what you're drinking and what you're smoking.
Today my smoke is a Oliva V Melanio.
Very nice.
There you go, buddy.
Arguably one of my favorite cigars. And then tonight I'm gonna polish off a Blanton's.
Oh, very nice. And I have to say one thing, Jaro, do not sneeze or cough anywhere near your camera.
And Bruce is here. We got
Bruce is here.
Bruce showing up for Chad.
Fantastic. Right. So anyhow, back to what we were saying, Chad. So what possessed you to decide that you wanted to become a referee? And I'm going to be showing some pictures throughout here just as we go along.
Yeah, it's interesting because I grew up playing sports. So I played, football as a kid and played basketball in high school, played basketball, all throughout. And ultimately I got injured playing basketball. So I played center. Surprise, surprise. I was always very tall. And my first highest level game that I played at the varsity level, I went up and went to breakaway and ended up tearing my Achilles and had to go have surgery and had to have some screws put in around my ankle, and they fused my growth plate. So after that happened, and after they fused together my growth plate, the doctor essentially, told me, said, we can fuse your growth plate or we can try to heal it, but regardless, you're done with sports. You're not going to be able to play. And so after that happened, I kind of went into a state of depression, put on some weight. I never really think I was going to be good enough to make it professional or anything like that. But when you're a kid and you have an injury like that happen, it really, affects your life. So I finally got my health in order, started losing some weight, and I wanted to get back around the sport. And so I just signed up and found how to do it and went to some classes and became a referee. And now it's a part of my life. It's year round. It's something that that I do year round, whether it's training, whether it's reading the rule books, whether it's actually officiating the actual games, whether it's going to schools and, helping them at practice, whatever it is. So now I'm around sports 24/7, it feels like. And that's what brought me back into the game. Just a love for the game and wanting to be close to it and get back to, to what gave so much to me.
Okay, so let me ask you another question real quick, Chad. So right here, when we're looking at, let's see here, when we're looking at, let's say this picture, and let's see, there we go. So I'm ignorant to this. Whatever possessed, and I guess this happens in almost all sports, the black and white pattern for being a referee.
You're supposed to stand out, and you don't want to appear in the same uniform as possibly as the two teams that are playing. So, we always state, there's actually three teams that are out on that court or out on the field at any given time. So this is my basketball uniform here. So at any given time, there's three teams out there. But if you pay attention, right, in basketball, there's 10 players that are actively playing, and there's only 3 officials. So we're one team, and so that's why we wear that uniform, and we want to stand out. But we also want to blend in. And the black and white is designed to, or the different color schemes that they use, it works with television, actually. The idea is to blend in. Now, we use things, especially in football, that are bright colored, right? So, and that's because we want those to stand out. But the goal of a referee is to not insert yourself into the game. It's actually to just be part of the game. And we are the keepers of the rules. We ensure that it is a fair contest, that it's literally the players that are determining the outcome of the game, not any other outside source.
So it's the contrast of the uniform, where anybody on either side of the field or in the grandstands knows that you guys are the officiating teams.
That's correct. Yeah, and this uniform here, this game here, this is we're getting ready to start. This is pregame, so as you can tell, there's not a lot of people in the stands. There's a few people behind me. This was a really fun game, and that's the reason why I sent you this. Is as you can tell, there is a U up there. So this is at the Huntsman Center here in the state of Utah, University of Utah. There is a National Deaf and Blind League. Now, it's for the deaf and blind, but obviously blind people are not playing sports, but the deaf are. And so this is an adult professional league where all of the players are legally deaf. And so I was hired to officiate their national championship game 4 years ago.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Wow. Now, I want you to take a long look at that picture, Chad. Okay, and look in the mirror now. This is so much of a better look. Look at that clean-shaven face.
I apologize, Chad.
Yeah, well, he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so
we used to not be allowed to have facial hair. That changed a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
So whoops.
My goal here is not to give Dave a chance to talk. So
I know.
So anyhow, I want to this is my last question for a little while. This picture right here, if I can get it to come up. Okay, so explain. There's one guy with a white hat and everybody else with black hats. What does this mean?
Yeah. So previously, back if you go back, I believe it was in the 70s. All officials wore a white hat, and then the guy that was in charge wore the black hat with the white piping. It's now since been reversed. So the guy with the white hat is the crew chief, so to speak. And he's also, I'll point this out, he is the only one that is labeled a referee. The rest of us are not referees.
Really?
We are all officials. So the correct term is official, not referee. So I officiate. I do not referee. I officiate. So in this game, in particular, the big guy that's not me, that's his position is the umpire. The skinny guy next to him is the back judge. And then the guy that you can't really see, you can just see a little bit of his hat. He was the line judge. And myself, I am the head linesman. So we all have, set responsibilities, and that's what's different about football. You work one position the whole game. You do not rotate. Whereas in basketball, you rotate positions on the court. So
because it looks like that's a pretty serious conversation you're having. Do you remember the details of that?
This was a TV game, so this was a broadcast on our local ABC station here in the state of Utah. So playoff game. And I don't recall exactly what happened here, but anytime that there is a call that brings all 5 officials together, and as you can see, our white hat, the referee, he's got his hand on the mic that goes to the TV station. He's making sure that's turned completely off. And the reason why is because we essentially had an oh shit moment. So it could be a number of things, right? We could have had multiple fouls on the play. We could have had a turnover in the middle of these. And when these types of things happen, we need a conference together, and we need to make sure, that we are applying the rules appropriately. And the teams expect us to do that. We have to apply these rules appropriately for fairness. And so that's essentially what's happening here.
Wow.
Yeah. So let me take us back to the beginning now that you've delved into the details. Because I know we want you to tell tons of stories about plays and situations you've been in. But one thing you mentioned is you found out how you become a referee and started down that path. And I know that when you kind of talk about all the training that you have and the rule books and all that stuff, a lot of people don't know what goes into it. So just give us a little history about what does it take for somebody to get into this, and then the whole ranking system that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, so we are unionized. So I actually am, and I serve on our union board here in the state of Utah for high school football officials. And one of the things that we require is that we do have a test. So that's one of the main things. So you'll be sent the rule books. You get 2 of them every year because the rules change year to year. People don't realize that there are rule changes and things along those lines. So this year the rule book is red, and then the case book is green. And so the case book is all about situations that you might encounter, and it helps you understand how to apply the rules. So the first thing is that it's very easy to dive in. It's very easy to read the rules and get familiar with it. The next thing is definitely conditioning. You do have to pass a physical. You do have to be able to run. So during the off season, I make it a point. During the off season, I run a 5K 3 times a week. So I have a route that I set up throughout my neighborhood so that way I can run and do that. It also takes some time in the gym, whether it's like a simple weight training, stuff along those lines. But the main thing is endurance. It's all about endurance. That's the main thing. So once you pass the test and once you clear that from your doctor, then you can sign up to become an official. We are graded. It's very strict. All games are obviously recorded, and we have a software system that we can go in and we can watch any game. And part of my job as being on the board is that I will evaluate new officials, either in games. So I'll work underclassmen games, like the sophomore level, and I'll give them on-field coaching. And I'll also watch film, from varsity games, and then I will evaluate officials based off of that. And that'll come down to rules knowledge, interaction with coaches, interaction with players, your conditioning. How well did you move? Did you get to the appropriate spot on the field to make the call? Were you paying attention to your section of the field or your section of the court, and those types of things? And based off your grading, it affects your ranking. And we rank all of our officials, and we compete against each other at our position. And that's essentially, the higher your ranking, the better your games. And that's what it's all about.
So with that being said, this is not a voluntary thing. You're paid for this, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely paid. We are, contractors, so to speak, individual contractors. And the school hires contracts through an association. And there's one association in the state of Utah. It's the Utah High School Activities Association. And then I'm a contractor for them. So my boss, assigns me and then sends me to schools throughout the state. And then it's my responsibility to get there, and then there's per diems and travel fees and stuff along those lines, depending on how far I have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring up a question from the Barflies. But before that, you mentioned you get assigned games. Can schools request referees if they like one more than another or had trouble with somebody in the past?
They cannot request a certain referee. However, they can block a referee. So every year, a coach is given 3 blocks. So they can block a referee, and they can say, you know what, I don't like this official. I don't want him to work at my games. They can do that. But referees, in return, we can do the exact same thing. So we can block schools, and we can also block other officials, partners. Like if for whatever reason, if we feel like, hey, I don't work well with this guy, so I'm going to block him. I don't want to work games with him or her, and we can do that. And we had a huge ordeal here in the state of Utah where to that point that, Tigral is asking about, just about 2 weeks ago, it was not the game that I was working, it was a different game, but we had 3 officials that were attacked. at the end of the game. And so one of them was sucker punched in the back of the head. The other one was chest bumped. And then the other one had a water bottle that hit him square in the face when they were leaving the field. And so the Activities Association responds to that because it was a smaller town. The town essentially, the prosecutors, tried to play the game of like, well, we don't really know who it was. We're sorry. We can't really do anything. It's like, you guys got cameras everywhere. Schools have cameras everywhere. And he didn't want to do anything about it. So our response was literally every official in the state of Utah blocked that school. So then our boss had to contact the school and said, you guys better think about doing something because you don't have any officials that will work any of your games for the rest of the season. Wow. We're getting ready for playoffs.
Boom.
Okay, so with that being, since Tig Lilly had questioned that, I wanted to ask you, and I think we talked about this pre-show, that I think a lot of people in our audience that may be watching this don't understand what you guys deal with, and I want to show a quick picture before I ask the question. But if, like for instance, in this situation, let me get to it real quick. I'm not sure if it's that one. Let me see which one it is. Nope, that's not it. These slides are very, very small, but yeah, they're really tough to see. Let's do this one. Yeah, that one. So basically the question, and I know that you were a line judge here, I think, if I remember correctly, and you were running down the field to keep an eye on stuff. But what do the people won't know that you have to deal with behind the scenes? In other words, from the camera angle backwards, whether that be parents, whether that be other people. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, from a referee standpoint, for football, right, from an official standpoint there, you're in a stadium. And what's nice is that you are more removed from the fans. So the only time that, we get interaction with the fans is usually when we're leaving the field, either at halftime or at the end of the game. So fan interaction is pretty low. I mean, we've had fans, try to, run the field type of a thing, and then the police, tackle them and stuff like that. But, just crazy high school kids or something along those lines. But here in football, it's the coaching staff. So if you were to pull up a picture of just the football field, there is that white area. You're right. We call that the white. People don't realize is that the white is 3 yards wide. And the reason why it is 3 yards wide is because each team in between plays, they are allowed to put in 3 coaches in that white area. They can step into the white area. They can make their play call to either their offense or their defense. And then once the snap is imminent, and we consider the snap imminent when the offense and defense are both at the ball, then they have to remove themselves from that white area. And that white area is my area. That's my safety place. That's where I am allowed to be to work the game. So if a coach is in that area or makes contact with me in that area, or a player, that's when, additional penalties can happen. And then they escalate, based off of how severe it actually is.
Well, Tig Lilly had asked about threats, and I know you and I had discussed this at one point in time, but I would assume there's times when the officiating crew needs to be escorted to their cars, correct?
So every school that I work at here in the state of Utah, we've designated that they are required to provide us a locker room that is separate from the team's locker rooms, separate area of the school. They also have to provide us parking. So usually it's between the areas, right? Leaving the stadium, getting to the school. So yeah, depending on how far that is, because each school is obviously a little bit different, that set determines, how many cops are going to escort us. And so, we are escorted out. And I've had situations before, if it's a close game, and then they think that the officials were the cause of the reason why their team lost, we will ask, for the police officers to stay behind, and wait for us to get to our vehicles. Most games, usually they go without a hitch. You normally only hear about the bad ones. Most games, They usually just escort us off the field, and then we let them go. We take our showers. The fans all leave. They all go home, and then we head out to our car.
So you mentioned you're a little bit removed from the fans in football, but basketball, they're
They're
right
right there.
up against the court. So how is that kind of different during a game for you?
Well, there's a reason why I refuse to officiate youth basketball anymore. Let me just put it that way. They are right on you. They are right there. Usually you're trying to, you're getting your position that's technically out of bounds, and you've got a parent there, you've got, fans there or anything along those lines. And it makes it, pretty difficult, So yeah, they're there, they interfere with you. They're the heckling happens, and a good official is not going to let it phase them. So you got to try your hardest to keep that straight face, to stay focused on the game. And the longer you do it, the better you are at tuning it out, which is good. But we're human, it's just, if one guy gets a good heckle or something like that, you might get that smirk that points out or something along those lines. But, for the most part, it's not too bad.
So Amber brings up a good point, but I wanted to ask you something before we take this question. So, but you guys on the field, the officiating team has the ultimate authority that if somebody like a parent is really getting in your face, or even a coach, or even a trainer, as we've spoke about before, you can immediately remove them from the game, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So pregame is one of the most important things that an official is going to do. So when we enter the field, I get to the school 2.5 hours before the game starts. And depending on the level of the game and how many fans are going to be there, it determines, what level of interaction you're going to have, because these are public events. And I know, David, your background in, law enforcement to an extent, but also with the military, I'm sure you can imagine, right? When I'm working in a high school stadium with 5,000 people, I'm having a meeting with the police officers of the game, and we have exit plans, we have exit strategies, we have discussions about, everything from what if the field is stormed to what if somebody has a weapon. And depending on how big the game is, like if you're working, one of these big stadiums, like at the University of Utah or down in Alabama or at the University of Arizona, or I was going to say Oregon State, but I think they only have like 5 fans, so I don't think they.
Come on, buddy.
But
wow. Shots fired.
Those schools, you usually are meeting with the FBI. You're meeting with somebody from the FBI before the game starts.
Wow.
Well, and do you see, because everybody always says, oh, parents sit in the stands, whether it be football or basketball, and their kid is obviously the best one on the court or on the field. And do you see a lot of parents living themselves through their kids on the field, and do they make that known to you?
That's the worst part, right? Is that if you think about it, the higher level you go, right? If you get to Division I college sports, basketball or football, they state that only 1% of student athletes in Division I sports are going to make it to the profession, as a professional athlete. That number just goes down. And, the further down you go, the less security you have, with, the amount of interaction between parents or fans and stuff along those lines. So when I've volunteered and I've worked little league games or stuff along those lines, with like these 10-year-olds, you would think that these parents, the very next day, the San Francisco 49ers are going to be knocking on their door to sign their 10-year-old kid to a football contract. And it's like, I hate to break it to you, but the odds are, he's not going to do that.
Right. So back to Amber's question. Have you ever accidentally, or have a story of somebody who accidentally interfered with a play? And what is the process if an official does interfere with a play?
So it's, first of all, we are part of the game. So if, the teams will try to use the officials that are in the middle of the field or in the middle of the court, they'll try to draw up plays to strategically use us, right? They want to
really
rub a receiver off of the official, the umpire, for example, cutting over the middle to try to get the defender to create space. It's all legal. There's nothing against that. The difference is we don't have pads, right? We're not wearing pads while we're out there. We might put on shin guards, wear a supportive cup or something like that so we don't take a kick to the groin inadvertently. But, we're part of the field. So, no, it's impossible for us to interfere with a live play like that. The caveat to that is that exactly. We could have what we call, and it's in the rule book, an inadvertent whistle. And an inadvertent whistle is when we inadvertently blow our whistle. And it usually happens on big plays, change of possession. So there could be a fumble, and we might have blew that play dead, and we didn't realize, that the ball had actually gotten loose beforehand. And so then, if we have the ability, we'll go back and look at video replay if we can. But if not, the way that the rule is written for an inadvertent whistle is that the team that it impacted the most has the option to either replay the down, so they can go back to the previous spot and replay the down, or they can take the ball where the inadvertent whistle happened. So wherever
okay.
they had the ball.
So have you ever gotten hurt? You mentioned not wearing pads and stuff. Have you gotten hurt during a game?
Yeah, definitely. So I've had a few situations to where that, because being on the line, it's usually those fast running backs or the quarterback or a receiver who's coming to the sideline trying to stay in bounds. And sometimes you just get caught in no man's land, right? We have an unwritten rule that as an official, we're going to try to let the play develop in front of us because it's easier to react if it's in front of you. The problem is that, a quarterback throws a backwards pass or something along those lines, and now the action is ended up behind you. So I have been taken out before, with a leg whip and been hitting the legs and, go ass over end essentially. And so normally this time of year, I've got all up and down my legs, I've got bruises and stuff like that from just being bumped, or, the big 6'8", 400-pound lineman steps on my foot. That hurts. So things like that.
With cleats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Man, so PB Das, have you ever had a play like Terry Bradshaw's immaculate reception?
Of course,
well,
the
Terry
Pittsburgh
Bradshaw,
Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers,
yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, Terry Bradshaw, right? He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. But we have different things like that happen all the time. It's like, and that's why we always say you want to have a patient whistle in football. You need to let things develop. You need to let things happen. We'll have tip plays, that happen, and then you end up with an interception, and then you've got to switch directions and start heading the other way. So. Yeah, you're going to have those types of things all the time. And every game, right, when you just get so involved into the game, there are moments, where it's like I'll see a receiver and I'm at the end zone and he makes a one-handed, jumps in the air and catches that ball with one hand and then lands with both feet in bounds, and we got ourselves a touchdown. Well, the very first thing that I'm going to do after I signal touchdown and we're in between plays is I'm going to go up to him and say, hey, 83, that was a hell of a catch.
That's cool.
Having as much fun as they are. And we want to create a good rapport with them and recognize good play. That's what it's all about.
That's pretty cool. So one thing that you and I talked about too is tell us, most recently you had posted something about an injury that you saw that really kind of rocked you a little bit. And can you kind of expand on what happened and what you think was the causative factors in that and the ruling that would have gone in on that?
It's very important to one, talk about how the game has changed. And I can't stress this enough. It is a safety concern. We all have heard about the reports of players who are having brain damage well after they leave the NFL or they leave college sports, particularly football. And we have them suited up into these crazy, helmets and pads to protect themselves. But all that did is it made it to where that they can hit harder without feeling pain themselves. And it's about player safety. And what people don't realize is that the game has changed. You can no longer, before it used to be like you would tell your stud linebacker, I want you to find somebody and I want you to just hit him every single play, just lay him out. And that type of stuff is not legal anymore. And if it's not legal for a reason, because of the lawsuits. If that continues to stay in football, we will no longer have football. So the rules have changed. And that's where you get the lovely rule called targeting. So last week, it was the last week of a regular season play here in the state of Utah. And I was officiating a region championship game. So the winner of this game gets a bye in the playoffs for the first round. So it's a big deal. And it was a high school game, so we don't have video review. And one player, I have a running back who's coming around to the sideline, and he's got a player that's wrapped up around his waist trying to pull him down, and a player comes in and just hits him straight into the helmet. And so we have a flag for targeting. And so it's a 15-yard penalty, personal foul. We march it off. The very next play, I have a player who goes out for a pass that's right in front of me. He takes the catch, and as he's going down, his knee touches the ground, and a player comes in and launches himself. And that's what we look for, right? We look for a player that's leaving his feet and lowering his helmet, and we look for the crown of the helmet. And he literally just hit that guy square into hit the top of his helmet. And the player was literally passed out cold before he hit the ground.
Wow.
He kind of just rolled over, dropped the ball. So now I've got to think to myself, is this a fumble? Because you still have to officiate the play. I ruled that his knee was down, so I killed the play. And it's instantly get everybody away from that player. And, of course, he's near the visiting sideline. And it's over my radio, we need medical, we need medical. And it stopped the game, get them over there. And he was out cold for probably about 2.5 minutes. And they got some salts out, got him back awake. He did stand up and walk on his own. He needed some support to get to the sideline, but he ultimately went to the hospital, and he never came back into that game. So, yeah, Rich, it used to be spearing. We just refer to illegal contact now. But now, that discussion was we ejected the player that initiated the hit. This was two personal fouls back to back on the same player.
It was the same. It was the same guy that. Oh, okay. It was the same person. All right.
So it's scary stuff. Some of the injuries I've seen. I've seen compound fractures. I've seen bones, sticking out of skin on legs. I've seen guys that can't feel can't feel anything from the waist down, and we got to send them to the hospital. I mean, I've seen it all out there.
That's super important, the safety aspect you mentioned, because we hear about, the NFL players after they're retired, but this all starts back middle school or high school, these hits, right? So,
yes.
So, I mean, I just processing how important it is, even though people might get ticked off, like let them play, let them hit, and all this stuff, it builds up over time. So,
and that's the problem, right? Is that the rule book, a lot of people don't ever read these, and it does start in Little League. And so the problem is that it's people, unfortunately, like the three of us, when we played football or when we watched football as a kid, we saw these big giant hits, and we saw them on Sports Center. We saw them there. And so we are trying to coach our kids to go deliver these same type of hits. That's what we think it is. And then the officials are throwing flags on these types of plays. And then they're like, what? That's legal. And it's like, read the rule book, and so that's essentially what it comes down to. And so as we've introduced these new rules, the targeting rule has only been in place for about 10 years. So it's starting to get better, and it's starting to trickle down. But that's usually where you see most of these hits. By the time you get to the college level and stuff along those lines, it's usually incidental targeting, right? It usually does not have that qualifier of intent. The problem is that these athletes are literally trained to be an athlete, right? Once they get to the college level or higher. Their bodies they have special doctors and special nutritionists that are setting up their body to literally be a weapon. So an incidental targeting at the college level is a lot different than an intentional targeting at the high school level.
Well, with that, in talking about ejections, and obviously, that's a judgment call, and obviously in this case it wasn't, but do you ever find yourself having to eject coaches?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the rule book supports us in that. So I actually paused onto one of these rules here for you. So Rule 9, Section 5, Article F states, refusing to comply with a game official's request can result in unsportsmanlike conduct or an ejection from the game. Anything that the official deems is a travesty to the game can also be ejectionable.
Wow.
So that right there is that's our catch-all rule, if that makes sense. So, I've had officials, I've had coaches now where just this year, right? He is playing. Everybody plays with synthetic footballs now, right? Everything's synthetic. You don't see a lot of full traditional leather balls. So we're playing on a grass field, I pick up the football, and I'm the white hat this game. I pick up the football, and I'm getting ready to set it down to get ready for play. And as I'm picking up the football and I'm looking at it, it has a pelt of grass that is stuck to it. And so I take the grass and I peel it off, and I'm like, there's something on this football because now it's stuck to my hand. So I kill the clock, and I walk straight over to the coach, and I say, I see him there, and I said, hey, what'd you put on this football? And he's like, oh, he goes to his bag, and he pulls out this ball wax. And I'm looking at this ball wax, and it literally states for leather footballs. So he's applying wax for a leather football, is putting it literally on a synthetic football, creating a sticky substance. And I went straight up to the coach, and I told him, I said, you're getting an unsportsmanlike conduct foul for this. I said, this is a travesty to the game. And I told him, like, you're lucky you're still in here. And so then he turns around and he says, well, let me get another ball. And I said, absolutely not, coach. You have lost all rights to supply a football for this game. You'll be playing with the opponent's ball for the rest of the game.
So it's like the old days when they used to load a baseball. Same type of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's I could have ejected him for it. I'm like, it's early in the season. This is a sophomore game. This is probably his first time doing it. It's like, what the hell are you thinking?
Wow.
And then, of course, the quarterback, the rest of the game is like, this ball's not sticky. I can't get a good grip on it. And I'm like,
well, duh.
Good luck, man. It's going to be like this the rest of the season for you.
Well, I know we're going to get into basketball in a few minutes, but you officiate football and basketball. Did you ever have any inclination? Because I played baseball. Did you ever have any inclination to officiate baseball?
I love baseball. And a lot of my referee buddies officiate baseball. I fear that if I picked up a third sport, I might be single. So,
okay.
But I love baseball.
I want to know more about, like, you personally, what it's like to be in that role, because one of the things I think about all the time is all these split-second decisions you have to make, right, with thousands of people watching you. And is it just because you've been doing it long enough that it just doesn't look right, and that there's a penalty or something, or are you questioning yourself all the time too, and having to watch film to confirm you did things right?
So the game has to slow down. And whenever I'm training a new official and I'm their mentor, I always say to them, I said, the game is going to look fast, and you just need to keep seeing snaps or keep officiating basketball games until the game slows down. And it comes down to a lot of film study. People don't realize this about officials, but when I have a game assignment, like I had a game this Friday, and it's the first round of the playoffs. And I got this game assignment on Saturday, just a few days ago, because they set up the bracket, and I just got assigned the game on Saturday. I have probably already put in about 30 hours of film study between these two teams.
Well,
so,
we didn't say this is not your full-time job. You're doing this on top of a full-time job.
Yep.
And so how many hours, and you're getting to that, do you spend a week when you're in season?
When I'm in season, I try to put at least anywhere from.
Can I stop you there a second? Can we rephrase that to say that you're not in season? That just sounds odd.
What
you're
do you
working
call it?
during the season. Yeah, because a deer is in season. A cat is in season. Yeah, let's.
Well, Chad's certainly not in heat, I don't think.
No.
Sorry. I just needed to clarify that. I was having a hard time. My eye was starting to twitch.
Yeah, I would say between rule study, right, it's you can tell the good officials from the bad officials. The good officials, after they pass the test, they put these books away. The good officials are in that all the time. And film study, I would say I try to put anywhere, depending on the game, anywhere from 20 to about 50 hours a week of film study. Most of the time, it's around 20 hours.
Wow.
As I get into bigger games, it's going to be a lot more. But I want to understand, when, like, for instance, this team that I'm getting ready to officiate, I won't say their name just in case the off chance this gets out there, but the team that I'm officiating on Friday, one of the teams is that. So when I know when they run trips, so meaning 3 receivers out on one side and one on the other side, they run out of that formation. They like 9 times out of 10, it's a running play. Now, when they go even splits, they put 2 receivers on either side. That's when they're going to pass. So, I try to get myself into situational. So that way I know when this team lines up and I'm here and I'm on the sideline and I'm looking down, it's like, okay, we're in trips. This is most likely going to be a run play. So I'm mentally preparing myself pre-snap. And I have a pre-snap routine that I go through every single play. It's not just sitting around and waiting for the ball to snap. I have a checklist that I'm mentally going through to prepare myself for the game before that play.
Now, do you, when you watch those films, are you also looking at certain players because they may have a reputation to do this or that, or do you try to stay as objective that way? But I mean, if you've got somebody that, let's say, they're known for targeting and the films can say that, is that somebody that you're going to watch a little bit more careful, or do you try to say, no, it's a brand new game, it's a brand new day?
So let me put it this way. So these 2 teams that I'm officiating on Friday, they played each other earlier in the season. So I watched that game film. If you're the home team, let me just put it this way, number 77, I've got my eye on you, because when you played this team 3 weeks ago, on film, I saw you throw that punch, and the officials didn't catch it, and you should have been ejected from that game.
Well, no, but
you don't do that here.
But that's excellent, because and I want to bring up one other thing, and this before we get into basketball, is that with the changes in the pandemic and people being frustrated and everything else, you told me of a story where there was actual, and this blew me away, where there was actually derogatory statements being said to a person of color this was at the high school level, wasn't it? Can you kind of expand just a little bit on that? That had to blow you away.
In the state of Utah, with everything that has been happening politically, and I'll try to avoid that conversation because it can go south quickly. But because of that, unfortunately, race is being brought up a lot. And on the football field, this is an opportunity where these kids can, for that 2 hours that they're playing this game, the idea is that they can shut off the outside world and just play a game that we're going to be and try to keep it fair. Unfortunately, the outside world bleeds in. And so they made a rule to where that if a racial slur or a gender slur or anything along those lines is used and we hear it, it's an automatic flag. So if we can identify the player that did it, that player is automatically disqualified. And not only are they disqualified from that game, they miss the next 3 games as
wow,
well.
Good for you.
Now, if we can't identify the player, it's an unsportsmanlike penalty that is assessed to the head coach. And it's a big deal here in the state of Utah. When this happens, the way that we're to do it is that we go to the team of the player that we're ejecting or of the team that we know who said it, and then we clear the field and we bring out both head coaches to the 50-yard line and we explain to them.
Wow.
Player X we heard them use a racial slur, and we're told that in this moment we are to say exactly verbatim what they said. So we'd say to the coach, person X said Y, and we now need you to go to your sidelines, take a conference with your teams, and explain the importance of why this is not allowed.
Good for you.
And they go
That's
back
awesome.
and they do that, and so then we start the game back up. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal.
Well, and before you answer this one from PB, that being said, now you have more and more females playing at the high school and the college levels too. Does that present a whole nother set of issues for you as an officiant, or is it just a football player?
It happens on both sides. So, for instance, it was 2 years ago, I had a female official assigned to my crew that I was mentoring. She was brand new to the sport, didn't know football, but she wanted to officiate football. And so I was training her and I was helping her and stuff along those lines. And there was a play where we ended up in a timeout, and she kind of came in and we conference at timeouts and kind of discuss things that we're seeing on the field, right? Just like the teams are conferencing, we conference as well. And I could tell that something was wrong with her. And I just said, hey, what's wrong? And she said, oh, it's fine. And I said, no, what's going on? And she said, well, this coach called me the C word.
Oh.
I said, what? She goes, yeah, this coach called me the C word. And I said, well, why didn't you throw your flag? And she said, well, I didn't know what to do. And so I took it upon myself, and I went up to the coach and I said, it's my understanding that you called her the C word. And he goes, no. I said, you did. And he said, he finally admitted it. And I said, well, you're out of here. You need to leave. And he said, well, she didn't do anything about it. I said, I don't care. I'm doing something about it.
Good for you.
And we kicked him out of the game.
Wow.
And
Now what about female players? Is there issues you have to deal with that, or no? They're just football players.
It's not as bad. We have a girls' league here, and there is a professional girls' league in the United States that I officiate in, and I actually don't have any issues with that. Usually those are fine, but the same type of stuff happens with the players. Those types of things, but it's usually not as bad.
Right.
It's the female officials that take the brunt of it, unfortunately.
And I knew this question was going to come up if nobody would ask it, but do you have a dream game to officiate because of atmosphere? So Alabama, Clemson, Duke versus North Carolina. And a second part to that question is, do you have aspirations of going to the collegiate level and maybe even to the pro level?
So definitely. Obviously, as an official, we want to work the biggest games. So I obviously want to work as many state championships as I can. But the big games, right? If I were to pick a game, I grew up here in Utah. So the game that I want to officiate at some point in my life is Utah versus BYU, right? I really want to work. I want to work that game. I would love to do that. I'm also a huge Notre Dame fan. I would love to work like Notre Dame Stanford or Notre Dame USC or something along those lines. Those types of games, right? I would love to get to that point. Basketball wise, same idea, right? I want to play those types of things. I want to get into those types of levels of intensity. I mean, when you're in a game or in a gym and you blow your whistle and the players don't hear you because of how loud it is, that's the type of environment that I want to be in.
Wow.
And I do have aspirations to get to, the collegiate level. Last year and the year before that, I worked a lot of junior college. So I've been getting myself into those ranks. And then as you two know, and probably most of the listeners, I'm assuming know, I welcomed my third child into the world back in January. And because of that, and she was born right at the beginning of the off season for college football, I had to, go to my assigner and kind of just say, look, I said, I got a new baby at home. It's going to take everything in me to get ready for the fall for high school and stuff like that. So I need to take a back seat. So I have not officiated college football this season, unfortunately, but it was the right decision, right? Family still comes first. I'm a father first. That's what's most important to me. So I had to take the year off for that, but I'm signed up for 3 huge clinics that I'm going to go to. I'm going to be trying out for some college conferences during the off season coming up. So.
Well, and you've kind of explained how, you talked about there's like a ranking system. And you explained that's how you move up through the ranks from high school to maybe community college and then smaller colleges and on up and up, right? And I think that's something that's not common knowledge either. So in theory, the people we see on TV doing NFL, they started much, much lower and had to work up through that same system. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I saw I got the comments up over here on the right. I'm not sure who said it, but someone mentioned that, the amazing thing is that the refs and the umpires are usually correct. That's the truth. I mean, if that game is big enough that you're watching it on TV, I'm going to just put it this way. Whoever is assigning that game, right? Whoever, we call them arbiters. So whoever is arbiting that game and is assigning the officials to that game, they're going to put the best officials out there for a reason, right? They're on national television or local television. They don't want it to screw up. So it's the cream of the crop. So when you get to the end of the year and you're watching that NCAA championship or you're watching the Super Bowl, it's the best of the best that are out there. And so they don't make mistakes.
You must obviously get to a point then in that hierarchy where it becomes much more difficult to do it as a second job or a quote hobby or whatever, because right now you said you travel throughout Utah. But then when you get into colleges, I imagine that area must expand quite a bit that you have to travel.
Yeah, you sign contracts just like players do. So you are, you're hired on by whoever it might be, right? So you could be hired on by the SEC, for example, or stuff along those lines. The SEC is known for the best college, conference in the United States. So if you're an SEC, I agree, Dave. But if you're an SEC official or any of the Power 5 officials, you sign a 10-month contract, and you are essentially there. You go where they tell you to go from August 1st through May 31st, and then you get June and July off.
Wow.
So it's that.
So it's not conducive for a young family, then, obviously.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. When I was working those games, it's when I had a college game, depending on where it was at, I'd go up to Idaho or something like that. I'd work my high school game on Friday, and I would either leave that night or first thing in the morning Saturday, go work the game, and then come home either by flying or driving, and I would get home late Saturday or early Sunday morning. So once football season starts, God bless my wife. She understands, that it's a dream of mine and a passion of mine, and she allows me to do it. I mean, if a lot of officials, unfortunately, end up in divorce, and it's because, they don't have the support system around them. And I saw, Jaro's comment there. That's exactly it. It's like my wife is postpartum. I've got 3 kids in the house now. There's no way I could devote to the off-season stuff that was expected of me to continue collegiately this year.
Right.
I needed to be home. And so those are decisions that you have to make. So.
Well, before let's because we're getting here time-wise, but I know we want to touch on basketball a little bit. But I was watching some film before our interview today and watching some old games, and it seems like the referees, the white hats, used to have some leeway, and there was, I was watching some the world's best referee calls, and there was this one gentleman, and God forbid I can't remember his name, but he said personal foul number 57 because he was giving him to business, and it was the most hilarious call I've ever seen in my life, and everybody in the stadium just erupted. Now, can referees can they ad lib like that?
You can. It's kind of frowned upon, but we're human too. Yeah,
it was great. It was great.
It is great. I mean, and that's always a joke, right? Before we go out onto the field, we have our little conferences, and one of the things you always say is, "Hey, let's just make sure there's no giving up in the business while we're out there."
So I thought that was just the best because he was so serious about it, and it was just wonderful. I can't remember. I mean, he's a very famous referee, but it was amazing. So let's touch on basketball a little bit because obviously you said something about football where you want to slow the game down, and I can get that, because football has these built-in breaks. How do you do that in basketball when it's go, 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 go?
So basketball is a completely different animal. In football, and I know we're switching to basketball, but it sets us up perfectly. In football, I'm sure you've all seen it. If you watch enough games, you'll see the official turn around and he'll grab his yellow flag. Right, I've got one here. He'll grab his yellow flag and he'll wave it above his head and he'll say there was no foul on the play. Basketball is different. When you blow your whistle, you better have something.
Really?
You don't have a choice. There is no saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, no, there really wasn't a foul." You blow your whistle, you have a foul or a violation. So in basketball, it's all about getting to the right position. It's all about getting to the right position on the field. So that way you can get angles and you can open it up and you can see what you need to see. And that's how the game slows down for you. You understand that if you can go from inline to the 28-foot line and you can get there effectively and be able to officiate the game and get into that right 45-degree angle, you're going to be able to be in the right position to make the right call that you need to make.
Well, because it also seems in basketball that the referees have to be almost as in good a condition as the players because they are running constantly.
So people don't in a football game. I wear a pedometer in football and basketball. In football, when I get off the field, I've ran anywhere from 7 to 9 miles.
Wow.
In basketball, when I'm refereeing a high school basketball game, the lowest amount of steps that I've had is 10 miles.
That's too many.
It is a lot.
nuts.
The highest is like 13 and a half. So,
because you talk about training, and I don't think many people could keep up with Dave and I with the scotch and cigar intake. So we understand that about being highly trained and being able to keep up with the other guys. But
This statement brought to you by the American Cancer Society. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
but I mean, and you don't get the benefit, right, of like the physical therapist and the rub downs and the ice bath and all that stuff either, right?
We do.
Oh,
You
did
know,
you?
He's been holding out on us.
The
Yeah.
athletic trainers, you know, I mean, in our locker rooms, you know, we'll have the ice baths ready to go for us when we get done.
Oh, so you have a regular locker room. They're not just shoving you in a broom closet or something like that.
Some of the smaller schools do, but you know, the good schools and stuff like that, you know, they all are required to give you access to their athletic trainers.
Oh, I want to see your locker with your name on it.
Okay.
You need to take a picture of that for us.
Sure. You know,
So-
I have a physical therapist that I go to once a week. You know, just to kind of, you know, make sure my muscles are in order and stuff along those lines.
So what is if you were to just sit back and just kind of put the two sports in front of you, what in your mind as an official are the biggest contrasts between football and basketball as far as an official?
The biggest thing is that, right? So in football, kind of what I was talking about is that we have the ability to, as an official, we can say, did it affect the play? So, and the biggest one is holding, right? And that's why I am the worst person to invite over to your house to watch a football game or a basketball game. And I'll just say this and on a tangent real quick. And the reason why is because, like was mentioned earlier, the referees are usually right. I'm the guy that's in the room where everybody's like, "Oh, that stupid ref! I can't believe he called it." I'm like, actually, he got it right. And then I, you know, can cite the rule as to why they did it. They got it right. But when you are officiating football, I can see a hold. I can see a hold is happening, and holding happens on almost every single play. However, the play went to the opposite side of the field, so I'm not going to throw that hold. I'm not going to throw it. You know, it did not impact the play. It had no impact on the play. Whereas in basketball, you're in a much smaller venue, and if I have a player hold, right, there's holding in basketball too, that happens, well, that could have prevented that player from cutting to the hoop and being able to get an easy layup or something to that effect. So it's immediate, right? You see a foul, you call a foul. In football, we have what you see a foul, you bank it. Meaning I'm like, okay, I got a foul on 63. That is holding. Holding is on 63. Okay, the play went away from him. I'm not going to call that foul. Oh, the play came to his side. There's my flag. We're going to get that holding on number 63.
That's interesting.
So here's a comment with a follow-up question that, you know, I want to see the locker with your name on it. Spider says he's never seen one that's labeled Bigfoot, but the question is, do you have a
some
nickname?
of those pictures, Dave? You'll see I might be 6'3", but there are plenty of officials that are taller than me.
And besides, the proper name for a football official is not Bigfoot. It's Sasquatch. Sasquatch. And this is why I got to go back to cigars for a minute. This is why I'm so surprised that Chad doesn't have any Dunbarton cigars, because Steve Saka's big Sasquatch cigar holder. I'm surprised you don't have that yet.
I know. Well, they don't sell them in Utah. I at least haven't found them in any of the Utah shops. So.
Challenge accepted. Something coming your way to Vegas. So,
I would love to have them.
Tig Lily has, do you have a nickname on the field? We all know that he has nicknames on the forum, but we won't go into that.
No, it's just like anything else in sports, right? I'm usually referred to as my last name while I'm on the field, you know, or, you know, a lot of people will call me CV. You know, they'll go with the initials. They'll just call me by my last name. Yeah. Just anything along those lines.
So here, PB wants you to officiate a game between Dave and I, but I don't know if everybody's seen it.
That would be real easy. He'd have the phone, he'd put 911, the ambulance would show up, and that would be the end of it.
Yeah. And the Big Bang Theory, I remember the two nerds were competing against something, and they were just exhausted, just dribbling the ball.
Yeah. It was Wallowitz and Sheldon. That's who it was, Wallowitz and Sheldon, I think.
Yeah, well, you know, in sports, it's an opportunity to where that it's high intensity, and they want to win. I mean, that's the thing we got to realize, right? Is that these coaches, they're getting paid to coach. This is their job. This is their livelihood. They have a bad game, they could get fired. You know, I have a bad game. I'm a contractor. You know, I'm going to get assigned a different game the next week. It might not be as high profile if I made a mistake. It could be anything along those lines, right? But for them, it's important. So in a roundabout way to answer that question, whether it's football or basketball, I try to approach it to where that if the coach is being heated. He's yelling, he's upset, he or she, right? Because there are female coaches as well, I should say that. But as long as they are being respectable, I'm totally cool with it, right? Because usually what happens is 2 or 3 plays later, they're going to come up and apologize to me and say, hey, you know what? Sorry about that. I was just getting heated, but you were right. But it's when they make it personal, right? And that's the difference here is that if you have an official who's going to go out there and if he can't handle being yelled at, they're not going to survive. You're going to get yelled at, and it's just the intensity of the game. You got a lot of testosterone going. You've got all these different things that are happening in the environment. So if they come up to me and they say, hey, and if they make it personal, that's when the flag's going to come out. If they start using you statements or you guys or you got it wrong or stuff along those lines, that's when the flag's going to come out. If they're going to come out, they're going to say, hey, I think you're missing the foul. I think you're doing this. This is clearly holding, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be like, all right, coach, I'll continue to watch for that. Thank you. Acknowledgement is very important, and it's the key is that as an official, you have to train yourself to not match their intensity. Now, sometimes it's warranted, right? The guy that called my partner the C word, it's warranted. But other than that, you got to keep it simple.
What's weird, and I'm sure it gets better again the higher level you go, but you kind of implied that at least at the high school level, not all the coaches know the rules, which seems weird because you have to take a test on the rule book, but it seems like the coaches don't. And for it being so important to them to win the game, you would think it's in their best interest to kind of understand how you're going to be officiating, but right, just a contradiction, huh?
It's coaches don't read the rule books, and the ones that do, they're the ones that draw up the crazy plays. So that's essentially where it kind of comes up at. So that's where it comes into. You can tell the ones that do. And to answer P-Beat's question here, a game that defines me, I don't think so. As an official. Not yet, anyways, right? My career is very young. I've only been doing this for 11 years now. So very, very young in terms of an official. I don't think I've had that game that defines me yet. Now, I've worked national championships. I've worked, big games and stuff like that. But I go out, I work the game, and it goes right back to the comment I made earlier. My goal is to go out and to work that game and to ensure that the players determine the outcome of the game. I don't want to insert myself into that game. And the play that you're talking about, John Cahill, I've been to some of his conferences where he's spoken, at camps that I've gone to. And he doesn't even talk about that play that happened back in 2009. But, clearly, you are a fan, which is totally understandable, of that. I'm assuming one of the teams that were playing in that game, it sticks out to you. But to him, no, it doesn't. It's like, yeah, it just happens. And that's, I think, what separates officials from fans and officials from coaches and players.
Okay, 2 questions. One, does it seem like baseball umpires seem to get more abuse directed at them? And is that simply because of where they're standing?
I was going to say they're just
right. Yeah, they're right in the war zone. And the second question, Chad, if you don't know, the one thing that we always lead back to, no matter what the subject matter is, because obviously Jerry is hungry. So the second question would be, what are your pregame foods? What do you eat prior to a game? What do you stay away from? And stuff like that.
Wait, are you implying Chad is a highly tuned athlete?
Yes,
I'm not.
I've seen this guy in person.
Well, but remember, I play the banjo. Remember, so you can tune a fish, but you can't tune a banjo. So the same type of philosophy works here.
Well, it's. I always joke, right? I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'3". I'm 230 pounds. However, I guarantee you that I can run 100 yards and not get winded. You ask me to run 105 yards, I might get a little winded.
The ambulance shows up.
It's good to know your limits. That's all right.
So what do you do for a pregame as far as food?
So I'm a very, and I know probably another topic I'll just touch very briefly. I'm a very strong and devout Catholic, a very traditional Catholic, and as a traditional Catholic, I do not eat meat on Fridays. And so, in high school, they play on Friday. So I start with, a lot of oatmeal in the morning to get me started. And I start hydrating on Wednesday. So Wednesday is when I start hydrating. So I'm going to the bathroom a lot once Wednesdays hit.
Wait till you hit our age; it gets worse.
Yeah.
So
So
you got to make it through 15 minutes, Dave, without a bathroom break.
yeah, lot of oatmeal, and then usually, and I know you guys will get a kick out of this. Others might not, who don't know me as well, might not. But those of you that do, you'll get a kick out of it. And then on the drive to the school, I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then when I get to the stadium, so I'm there 2.5 hours before kickoff. When I hit that 6 o'clock window before kickoff starts, for me, and I know this is where it's kind of bad, I take 4 ibuprofen, another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I take an energy drink, and then a liquid IV. And the caveat to all of this is that that's a lot of liquid right before I go out on the field. It's so weird. I don't have to pee until like 45 minutes after the game is over.
You're
So
sweating like heck.
I'm sweating it all out.
Yeah.
But so those are the types of things that I do. But yeah, I have a ritual, that I go through. So I've got my playlist. I get in my car. I set it up on my my YouTube music, and I've got my playlist set up, and I listen to my playlist while I'm driving out there, and it's that simple.
So Jerry asked, any coaches warn of any crazy plays they're going to run? I mean, do you ever hear what they're going to run? Because obviously, as a line official, you're right there when they're calling the plays out. Because I don't know, in the college, do they have direct communication, or are they still sending in?
So in the college level and the high school level, you're not allowed to have communication. You're not allowed to have radios in the helmets.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have radio communication from the tower down to the field, the coach is there, and that's it. But pregame, so we go and we meet with every single team, and usually it goes with something like this. I'll go and I'll say, all right, hey, Coach Dave, hey, congratulations on your season. Hey, right now you're 6-1, so it's looking like it's going to be a big game. We ask him, hey, is your whole team legally equipped? Yes, they are. Okay, now, hey, remember, they got to cover their knees with their knee pads, simple things like that. We remind them about that type of stuff. And then we just say, hey, another thing, is that, is there anything that you're concerned about the other team that you've seen on film? And then they might say, hey, yeah, it seems like, number 45 tends to hold a lot. We want you to watch for receivers pushing off, stuff like that. Okay. And then we say, now, Coach, is there anything that you're going to run by design? That's the key word, by design, that might throw us off. And then they, essentially we're asking about, what kind of trick plays do you run? And then they might say, oh, on field goals, extra points, we always run a swinging gate. Or they might say, we run a double pass, or, we're going to run a reverse or something along those lines.
But they don't have to tell you.
They
don't have to tell you. Okay.
They usually do, because unfortunately, those are the plays where if they don't warn us, there's a higher probability that you are going to have an inadvertent whistle. And that's the last thing you want when you're trying to run a trick play.
Sure.
Here, PB? So PB wants to know, would you like to officiate one of your kids at the college level a few years from now?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was a very nice way to put it, Dave.
No. I do not want to officiate my kids. That's the last thing I want to do.
So here's a follow-up question, though. Would you want your kids playing sports having seen what you've seen on the field?
I am a firm believer that you cannot, based off of what I've seen, you cannot force your kids to play sports. If you force your kids to play sports and they don't have the heart, they aren't 100% committed, they are going to get hurt. It's that simple. Now, they already can get hurt, and that's something we didn't really talk about. The worst injuries I've seen are in basketball, not football.
Really?
But, so it's all about, if a kid does not want to play, you cannot force them to play. That's when they get hurt. So I ask my son, I have a son, he's 9. I ask him every year, what do you want to play this year? What do you want to sign up for? Well, I think I want to try baseball, Dad. All right, let's sign you up for baseball. I want to play basketball. Okay, perfect. And then I say, hey, Dad's around football a lot. Do you want to play football? No, I really don't want to play football, Dad. All right, cool. Not a problem at all. Would I love my kid to go play football? Absolutely. But if he doesn't want to play football, I'm not going to force him to play football.
Rich brings up something, and that kind of leads to a question. We're back to football again, but last weekend he saw a lot of football players ooching their jerseys. I don't quite know what that means, but we'll go. It's Rich. So their belly was sticking out. So is that a relaxing of a dress code? So the follow-up to that would be, you're seeing more and more facial hair on all sports, And baseball, that drives me crazy, but that's another issue. But long hair out the back, and to me, that just begs for somebody to grab onto the hair. Is there something that officials can do or suggest, or is that totally out of the realm of what you guys do?
It's getting cold, so we see a lot of people like with hoods hanging out of their pads or something like that, and we just tell them, we say it's the same thing as long hair. That's free game. You're allowed to be tackled by that, and it's not a penalty. So
so they can grab you by the back of the scruff and yank you to the ground.
Absolutely, yep. And then as to his comment about the belly sticking out, that is against the dress code. Technically, within the rule book, it does define what you're allowed to wear as a uniform, and you do have to have your belly covered. So I always tell the players, I say, hey, if you're going to show your belly, I'm going to show mine. And they usually pull their shirt right down and cover up their belly. So
now, with that being said, with the shoulder pads, the technologies are a lot different than when we played. But you see more and more, maybe at the college level, you see more and more of the running backs or the tight ends and stuff. Do they actually remove their hip and their pelvic pads to give them more? Be able to run better? Because I remember, we couldn't take off any of the pads. I mean, we had the hip pads.
So the pads have gotten smaller. Mm-hmm. So in the high school level and the college level, you have to have a pad in each area that you're supposed to have a pad. Knee, thigh, shoulders, helmet, stuff along those lines. In the NFL, it doesn't matter. You can go out there and just wear the football pants if you want. That's up to you. But, at the these levels that I'm officiating, you have to wear them.
Right.
So they can get smaller, though, but they have to have them.
Let's wrap it up. PB's got another question. Have you officiated a brawl yet?
Oh, yeah. And we have it's very simple. When we have a brawl, we are told to stand back. We grab where is it at in here? All the fun stuff.
Handcuffs?
We grab our paper here, grab my pen, and I start writing down numbers. All right, number 5.
I thought you were going to say he was going to play Sudoku or something.
And then when the brawl's over, when the administrators take care of it, because I'm not going to get in there and run the risk of getting hit by people that are wearing full pads, then we stand out there and we turn on our field mic and we say, number 5 is ejected. Number 32 is ejected.
Wow.
Number 45 is ejected on the home team, and on the visiting team, number 3 is ejected. Number 22 is ejected, and number 12 is ejected. It's that simple.
Wow.
Is that everybody involved? Because in pro sports, right, you don't see like everybody that's in the mashup getting ejected.
It happens. I mean, if you think back to some of those, it's been happening a lot more in basketball, right? They have a lot of security when you're at an NBA game, there is security that is their only job is the security of the players. So like if the players get into it, you'll see these people enter the court and they'll start separating the players. That's because the officials aren't going to do that. That's the responsibility of that hired security. That's their job. I'm not going to pull LeBron James off of Steph Curry, for example. Right. I don't want to take a punch from
Shaq off of Barkley.
Exactly. So yeah, no, not at all. So that's their job. And so at our level, at the high school level, particularly, it's they will have police officers that will come out and try to help break up the ball.
Well, and plus
as well as the coaches.
The high school kids are almost as big as your collegiate kids now. They're huge.
Absolutely.
So Jaro has a question. What do you guys do if you have a situation like what happened in the Dallas versus the Chargers pregame this last week? Now, I did not see the game, so I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. Do you guys?
So the caveat is that right back to this rule, and it states this: no player shall act in an unsportsmanlike manner once the game officials assume authority of the game. We assume authority of the game once we enter the field or the court. So if anything happens while we're in our locker room, and I've had that happen before, we've come out of the locker room and, coaches have told us, oh, we just had this big brawl that took place. What are you guys going to do? Nothing. We haven't taken responsibility of the game yet. But once we enter the field or the court and we take responsibility of the game, then we can start, administering penalties and then we're the ones that are in charge of the integrity of the game at that point.
Okay. So we're going to let PB have the final question. And a follow-up question to this is, I live in the South, and some high school games, players get called for health reasons as the heat index is too high. You can see them suffering. That's number one. Number two, you told me of a situation where you literally shut the game down, ended it, because of something that happened. Can you go into that as well?
Yeah, so we do have the athletic trainers here in the state of Utah. The way that we do it is that they put these sensors on the ends of the field. And the idea is that if the heat index reaches a certain level, and it varies, based off of the outdoor temperature and also the field temperature. And this is something that people don't realize either, and I'll get into that in just a second. But we will go into delays, and we will delay the game, and we'll push it off, and then sometimes it'll get so bad to the point to where that, for safety reasons, we have to call the game, and then it gets rescheduled for another day when the heat index or anything along those lines is in the right place. And I'm in the desert too. Utah is the high desert, so we do have 4 seasons. But there are times when I'm out there officiating, and at kickoff it's 98 degrees. And what people don't realize, and I'll tell this story to give an example. So during COVID, at the very beginning of COVID, the state of Utah was one of few states who continued to allow sports to continue. However, there were certain precautions that were put into place. And one of those is that your temperature had to be checked before the game started. And they had those like laser temperatures that they would go along on your forehead and stuff like that. And so it was the very beginning of the season. It's August, and outside it's maybe, 95, 98 degrees. And they take the thermometer and they put it up to my head, and the lady's eyes get so big. She's like, oh my God. And I kind of look at her and I go, what's wrong? And she goes, are you feeling okay? And she's like backing away from me. And I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. What's wrong? And she goes, your temperature is 132. And I'm like, if my temperature is 132, I'm dead. Right? And I'm like, what is the temperature of the field? And so she takes the gun and points it at the field, and she goes, it's 132 degrees. And I'm like, exactly. Check my forehead again. And she checks, and it's like 97 or something like that. So everything was fine. But everybody wants to put in these fancy new fields, and they think they're so cool because they're these natural turf, and you don't have to go out, you don't have to mow it, you don't have to water it. I'm going to tell you something right now. Every time that I go to a school, whether it's a college or whether it's a high school, and if it's in the summer, and if that temperature outside is higher than 75 degrees, do you want to know what the people are doing before the players come out onto the field? They're watering the damn field. Why are they watering the field? To cool the damn thing down. Because that field, there have been times I've stepped out on that field and I can literally feel the heat coming through my shoes. And I go through 4 pairs of shoes a season. And it's not because I'm wearing them out. It's because the bottoms are literally melting.
Wow. That's nuts.
It's hot, and so people don't realize that. So I'm a huge proponent of go back to grass fields, get rid of these turf. The turf causes more injuries than it prevents. And it because you're literally tackling people like on cement pretty much at that point. And it doesn't have as much give. I am a huge proponent of getting rid of these fields. They're nice to run on and they're nice to work when it's October and November.
Sure.
When it's hot outside, it's hell.
Wow, that's unreal. Well, hey, Chad, on behalf of Dave and myself and all the Barflies and Lounge, we really sincerely want to thank you for spending your evening with us, especially knowing how much time you spend with all the stuff you do. It was very important for us to have you on here and talk about this stuff. And what I loved about this is I think everybody in here can agree that we learned something from that. And then I also want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. I hope that you like the new format here on our channel. So make sure that you comment and everything else. And don't forget, our live shows are every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. Now, there will be a time change here. Well, for the rest of you guys, but for us, we'll stay the same. In November, I believe it's November 10th is when we're going to change, but we'll make sure we publish that. And really, we'd like any comments you have, any ideas for shows, stuff like that, please put that in the comments, because this show will also be available on the Drinks and Dave's channel as soon as we get done streaming. So, Dave, any final thoughts?
No, a big shout out to the Barflies. I'm excited.
Yes.
You know, Chad is a guest at our first show on our own channel, and a lot of interaction, and that's what makes it much more fun than just a couple guys chatting away. So
yeah, because you guys,
cool.
even though Dave and I are the hosts, you guys really run the content of the show, and we appreciate it. So, for Dave and myself, we want to say goodnight to everybody. And guess
Can
what?
I say one thing real quick
sure,
before you
of course.
hang up real quick?
Absolutely.
I want to say two things. First, youth sports at all levels is in danger of not being able to continue. There is a referee shortage that is happening across the country. And if anybody watches the show live or watches it after the fact and thinks to themselves, hey, maybe that's something I want to do, I encourage you to give back to youth sports and reach out to your high school activities association and figure out what it takes to be an official, because they need you. And without people that are willing to put on the stripes, youth sports will die. That's the first thing I want to say.
Very good.
The second thing I want to say is, I want to thank, both of you for inviting me to come here and do this. I think it's, I've been following along. I know I haven't officially been a Barfly yet, unfortunately, because you started this during football season and I've been super busy. But I catch the show every Wednesday, or before you guys moved to Tuesdays, I caught it every Tuesday. And, I think it's great what you guys are doing. I want to encourage everybody to make sure that if you're watching this after the fact, hit that subscribe button for these guys and, help them out. I think this is a great show. It's a great format, and it's a great opportunity just to kind of catch up and shoot the breeze. And I wish the both of you all the success in this, because it's
thank you, Chad. I appreciate it. Now, I have one question
man.
as far as, and I know Dave is thinking it, but he's probably not dumb enough to ask it, but I am stupid enough to ask this. If we are interested in becoming officials, is there anything that can go on your shirt that, like a cigar holder, while during the game? I'm just curious.
Thought we were going to get logos of our show on his shirt.
Well, I'm sure we could sponsor.
Can we sponsor the ref?
No, Under Armour takes pretty good care of officials.
Yeah, I could just say, ours would be a cheap patch connected with a paper clip or something. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week on the Drinks and Dave Show. Good night, and to steal something from Mr. Swanson, we'll see you in the comments. Take care.